Good morning. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, good morning.
How are you doing?
Oh, there you are. I had my screen in something else. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pretty good, thank you.
Oh, good. Good. Your picture popped up right on my screen as soon as I logged in. I usually log in with my screen with my video not on or my audio not on. That might be something that you people want to consider. I've started classes before, and I think some students didn't know that they were on. And all of a sudden they're there and they're big in the screen and everybody sees them.
Yeah.
There's I think there's a feature, at least on my computer, there's a feature that says uh, when you log in, you can log in with no audio and no video. Actually, I can set that up also for students so that when they log in, they don't come in with audio at least, because that has been interesting. I've
Yeah.
logged into school sessions before, and everyone has their audio on, and it's just like crazy.
I uh I came in a little early, so I was
Mm-hmm.
on and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
all of these advertisements were on, so I didn't know. I was like, "Oh, I heard where it said you are now being recorded." I was like, "Oh, school started."
Yeah, and that's another thing too. As soon as class starts, everyone's recorded, and it's like, oh. We were actually having a discussion about that in another school that I work for, as far as they were saying for instructors to really let their students know that if they are automatically recording every session, that they are being recorded. So it's going to be up to them to either show themselves if they want to. I personally like to see faces, but it's not required. Um, and a lot of people I know don't want to show their face, you know, um, during these Zoom sessions. And I guess that's understandable, but, I like the human interaction of seeing people, seeing people's face. And it's just a connection there that's nice. It's kind of simulates more of the classroom.
Yeah. When I do Zoom in other places, like I mean, it's not that it's required, it's never a requirement, but it's kind of like a conversation, they say. So that's when
Mm-hmm.
I do it. I mean, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
show my face,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess it's like a sign of respect or whatever. So,
Yeah, some instructors require it, so they can at least see that their students are following and, paying attention. Because sometimes, without seeing someone's face, I mean, you don't know whether or not they're even watching the screen. You don't even know if they're in the room, especially if they mute themselves and they stop they don't show their video. But Zoom actually has a feature where an instructor can tell whether a screen, like let's say you're surfing the internet while class is on, an instructor can tell whether or not you've put a screen in front of your Zoom screen. So it's just kind of uh, a uh, a teacher feature that they put in. So, like if you're surfing the internet and you're looking at other screens while class is in session, they could tell that you blocked your Zoom screen. But I don't use that because I don't go that far with. I know all my students are paying attention.
Sorry, what'd you say? I was looking at a website.
Yeah, 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 exactly. And I mean, I know that happens because we have conferences, school faculty meetings and stuff, and they go on for hours, and we're just like, nothing like hearing someone talk for an hour. So I appreciate all of you that I have to do this because it's part of the curriculum. So try and make it as interesting as possible. Okay, so today what I want to do is I want to, we are currently working on this national parks brochure, but I want to talk about today some features of InDesign that deal with typography. And these are things that Carly might have gone over in the InDesign class that you took, but it might have been a while ago. And when you look at InDesign in general, the reason why we use this program is because it handles typography so well. I mean, there is no other Adobe program that can deal with massive amounts of copy that like InDesign can. And back in the day, I mean, Cindy, you had mentioned Quark Express, and basically that's the reason why so many people use Quark Express, is because it was the definitive typography program. And if you didn't know Quark Express, I mean, you could basically, it was very difficult to work in this industry. Illustrator and Photoshop have always been around, and they've always been kind of the fun programs because they deal with, creating graphics, manipulating photography, doing special effects and that kind of thing. But really, when you get down to the nuts and bolts of graphic design, it's typography, and InDesign is the program of choice to use. And so it has some just incredible features, very much so like what Quark Express had. They've really advanced. It's really much more advanced these days. I'm going to share my screen here and we'll just get right to it. And what I want to show you today is the feature of styles, and how to create styles in InDesign. Now, if you know how to do this already, great. I want to put it into the context of this National Parks brochure. So I want to show you how to use the character styles or paragraph styles in InDesign as it relates to the project that you're working on. And so I'm going to do a quick little demo here to walk you through this feature of InDesign. So with that, let me go right to InDesign here. And in the InDesign interface, we're just looking at a page that I opened up. That's the grid of our National Parks brochure. It's 22 inches wide by 16 inches deep. What I did also is I brought down rulers, ruler guides at the fold lines of this brochure. So there'll be a ruler here, and that's at 4 inches, and then another ruler guide that splits the page in half at 8 inches, and then one at 12 inches. So you have 4, 8, and 12, and that's where the folds are going to happen in this brochure. And then if you come over vertically, there's one fold in the middle of the brochure, and that occurs at 11 inches because it's 22 inches wide, so half of that is 11 inches. So if you put those guides in as you're designing, that'll tell you where the fold is going to occur. And as we know in design, we try as best we can to avoid type going across a fold. Now in this case, it's probably going to be, there might be an opportunity where you miss type, but for the most part, there's so much copy on these brochures that inevitably some type is going to hit the fold. But in general, you want to try and, you always want to be aware of where your folds are, because what happens is in printing, when you print this thing, when it folds, a lot of times the paper cracks a little bit, and it'll disrupt and chew out the type sometimes, depending on what the paper is. But for the most part, it's still readable. But anyway. Okay, so I put the fold lines in, and I've got my 12-column grid with a 0.25 or a quarter-inch gutter space in between. And the gutter space here is up to you, how much you want. I would have enough gutter space to distinguish the columns. I wouldn't make it too thin because then, the type is going to look like it's too close to each other. But anyway, in this format, I think a 1/4 inch works pretty good. Or even 1/8 of an inch is fine. Okay, let me show you what I'm going to try and achieve in this demo. I always like to show what the end result is. So I'm going to jump over to this. Now, this is what I'm going to do. And this is not any layout. I'm not saying do this layout, or I'm not even using this as an example of a layout. But what I'm doing is, what I want to show you is how if you're bringing in copy from other sources, like if you're grabbing, highlighting, and pasting copy from websites, then as you know, when you copy from a website and you paste it into InDesign, it comes in at the same, it might come in at a default font, which is like 12-point minion or something, or it might even come in at the size that you copied it from the internet. Well, in this case, we have specific sizes. As a designer, I want this type to be consistent. I want this type to always look like this. And so if I bring in some type from another website and it comes in too big, I have to go in and highlight the text and change the font and change the point size and change the leading and change all of these attributes of this type. Now, every time I bring something in, I have to do that. And that becomes very laborious. To have to do that each time. So what I want to show you is how to set up a style. And by setting up a style, you're able to quickly turn any copy that you bring in into that specific font and size. And it makes it really easy because with one click of a button, you can highlight the text and change it to, in this case, this is called lemon milk, the bold face up here. And then the body copy is in Myriad Pro Condensed. And that's going to be true throughout the brochure. Now, this is lemon milk at a smaller point size and Myriad Pro Condensed at a smaller point size for the captions. And then for the main photos, it's the same typeface but larger. So how do we get this where we can efficiently change these point sizes and fonts where we don't have to highlight and change it every single time we bring something in? So that's where we go to a style. Now, under your InDesign, interface here, up in the upper right corner here, you have different palette configurations. Now, these palettes are basically what these palettes over here look like. Right now, I'm on the typography palette. And normally, when you open up an InDesign document, you'll probably be on maybe Essentials Classic, and it might look like this. I'm going to close this down, where all you have is pages, layers, links, stroke color, etc. Or it might even be on just the regular Essentials, and it might look like this. But in any event, you have the opportunity in InDesign to change the way your palettes look. And when you're dealing with lots of type, it's a good thing to go on the typography palette configuration. And that gives you not only what Essentials gives you, but it also gives you all of these things. I'm going to put this down here because this is really getting in the way. It gives you paragraph styles, character styles, and a bunch of other things that deal with typography, text wraps, and so forth. It's the paragraph styles that we're going to work with. And I'm going to show you that you can set up paragraph styles and you can label the style. And then when you bring in text, all you have to do is highlight that text, click the style, and it automatically changes to whatever you set up the style to be. Okay, so for now, just hold on to that thought. Okay, I'll explain it further as we go. But basically, a paragraph style or a character style, same thing, are styles that you set up to manipulate your type so that you don't have to highlight and change it every time. Now Quark, I think, used to have this feature or something similar to this, but InDesign does a very good job with this. So let's say that this is what I'm going to, this is what I'm going for, this look. So I'm going to go over to my page here, and I'm just going to walk it through how I would create that. And so what I did was I went on the national nps.gov website to choose my national park or monument or whatever, and I chose Manzanar, and Manzanar is in California, so I went to California, and I scrolled down to Manzanar. Manzanar was a Japanese internment camp during World War II, where my parents were interned after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Okay, so here's Manzanar. It's a National Historic Site. It's very similar to Cabrillo. And so I clicked on Manzanar, and the first thing I want to do is I want to, let's say, have a photo of Manzanar and a little blurb of copy that talks about Manzanar. So I went down here and I went to learn about the park. So I clicked on that. Okay. Now, you're going to do whatever you're going to do for your national park. And I found this photo, so I control clicked on it on a Mac, and I saved the image, okay, and I downloaded it to my computer. So here it is right here, this photo, because I know I'm going to use that in my brochure. Now the text that I'm going to use underneath that, and let me just check to see what text I did use. It says, as a Japanese American discovered Manzanar was, okay, so I'm not sure if that text was this text here. Let me just click on that. Yeah, okay. So the text I actually used was the text for nature and science. Okay, but let's say this is the text that I want to use in my national parks brochure. Now, I don't want to use this typeface or this size, but I do want to use the content of this. So I'm going to highlight all of this from this website, and I'm going to copy it, Command C, and I'm going to come over to my Manzanar, my brochure. I'm going to grab a text box, and I'm just going to draw a text box of any size, and I'm going to paste that text into my text box. I'll do Command V. And so there it is. Now, this obviously is not the size that I want. So in the beginning, what I'm going to do, let me make this a little bit smaller here so it's more manageable. Bring this up. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay. So this is the way, when I copied and pasted it from the website, this is the way it came in. It came in at just a very generic Minion Pro default type at 12 points. Okay, well, I know that I want all of my heads in my subheads. This is what would be called a subhead, nature and science. I know I want those in lemon milk. That's the typeface. And I know I want the rest of the body copy to be in Myriad Pro condensed. Okay, so I'm going to set those styles up right now. What I'll do is I'll open up my paragraph styles palette here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this text, and I'm going to go up and change it to my lemon milk typeface. Okay, so there it is, lemon milk. I know I want it lemon milk bold. Now you have to do this in the beginning. Once you do this, you're going to set this as a style, and you'll be able to access this style with one click. But in the beginning, you need to set this up. All right, so I've got this lemon milk, and I want this is going to be a big section, and then I'll also set up smaller sections for captions and smaller photos. But for larger photos and larger text, main text, I'm going to use this. So instead of 12 point, I'll use maybe 14 point. Okay, that's the style I want. So I'm going to come down here to my paragraph styles and I'm going to add a style. Okay, I click the add button right here, the little plus sign. And I'm going to, right now it defaults to paragraph style 1. I'm going to double click on this and it brings up the paragraph style options box. I'm going to name this subheads. In fact, I'm going to name this main subhead. Main subhead. Because that's what these are always going to be called. Main subheads. Not headlines, not the big headline, but the subheads, the main subheads. And then I'm going to go to basic character formats. And notice how it's reading what I highlighted here. It's telling me right now what that is lemon milk 14 point over 16 point leading, or 14 over 17 about. And I'm going to say OK because that's the style I want for that. So I'm going to click OK. Right? And you notice in my paragraph styles dialog box here, it gave it that main subhead. So that's set. This style is set. Now I'm going to highlight the body copy and I'm going to change this body copy to Myriad Pro condensed. Okay, let me look for Myriad Pro condensed. That's Myriad Pro, so I'm going to have to go to Myriad Pro condensed. I'm sorry. I have to slide down here to Myriad Pro condensed. Oh, okay. I'll change it here. Okay, Myriad Pro condensed. So that's the font that I want for all of my body copy. And I want that type to be, let's see, the main heads are in 14. The main copy is going to be big, so I'll make that in 12 points. Okay, so now I'm going to add another style, create a new style, and it's called paragraph style 1 again, so I'll click on that, and I'll call this main body copy or body text. Okay, main body text. And I'll click on basic character formats and you can see it picked up what I highlighted as Myriad Pro condensed 12 points over 14. And I'll click OK. And now I have main body text. I have main subhead and main body text. So I've set these two styles here. And I'm happy with that. It's going to be 3 columns wide. And let me just shorten my text box here. Okay, so I'll back out now, Command 0. And I have something that looks like that. So if I turn my guides off, hit my W key, that's what I have. And this is the typographic look I want for these big headings. If we go back to my example here, you can see this is the example here. Okay. Now I want to set styles for smaller photos. Okay, it's still lemon milk, but it's going to be a smaller point size. So I'm just going to set a style for this and set a style for this. And then every time I bring in this type of situation, I'll use this style. Every time I bring in small photos and want captions, I'll use this style. Okay, so let's go back over here. And let me just bring in that photo. Okay, so I've got my photo here, Manzanar JPEG, and I'll click and drag it in. And I'll just kind of click and drag it to 3 columns. And there it is. And I'll drag this down a little bit, set that in there. Hit my W key, so that's set up. Okay, so this style is set up. Okay, now I want some smaller photos here and some smaller text. So I'm going to go over back to my Manzanar, and I'm going to grab some copy again. And just for the sake of time, I'm not going to be too picky about what I grab, but what you get is, will be relevant. And let's say history and culture, okay? And let's say it's people. And so let's say I want to copy this paragraph and put this in my brochure. This is a lot of text. So I'm going to, again, copy this. And maybe I won't use all of it. Maybe I'll use, let's say, that much. And I'm going to do Command C to copy it. I'm going to come back over to my brochure. I'm going to grab a text box, and I'm just going to draw an arbitrary text box for now and paste that in, Command V. So there it comes in. It came in exactly at the same default Minion Pro. Now, if I didn't do these style sheets, I would have to, again, highlight this, change it to Myriad Pro Condensed, highlight people, change it to lemon milk, right? I'd have to do that every time I copy and paste something into my brochure. And that's very repetitive and time consuming, and we don't want to do that. Imagine doing a catalog, like a 400-page catalog, where every page you have names of products and descriptions and prices, names, descriptions, prices. And let's say all of that copy was given to you from Microsoft Word. Well, to go in and change every single item would take you forever. So we need to set up style sheets to make this fast. Okay, in this case though, what I'm going to do is I want this to be underneath here, and I'm going to make this 1 column long. Now notice what happened here is that when I made it 1 column long, notice how I get this little plus sign here. And that's because there's more text underneath here. See that? As long as I see that red plus sign, I know that there's more text. Okay. Whenever that red plus sign goes away, that means I'm at the end of the text that I copied. So you always want to pull your window shade down. Well, in Quark, it was called the window shade, right? You always want to pull your text box down until this red plus sign disappears. Okay. I'm going to highlight the word people, and that's going to be called a caption subhead. So I'm going to go up here, and I want it to be lemon milk, but I don't want it to be 12 points. I want it to be much smaller than that. So I'm going to say for this, I want it to be, let's say, 9 points. Okay, my caption is going to be lemon milk bold, 9 points. Now I'm going to go over to my paragraph styles, and I'm going to make that style. So I click on plus style, double click on paragraph style 1 again, and I'm going to call this caption subhead, because these are going to be the caption subheads. I'm going to go over to character formats, and I'm going to make this, notice how it picked it up, 9 point lemon milk bold, and I'm going to click OK. So now I'm going to select the rest of my text, and I'm going to make that Myriad Pro Condensed. Okay, again, you have to do all this work first. I'm going to make the size of this really small, like 6-point type. Or actually, that's too small, so let's make it 8-point type. And then I'm going to make another style for that. So I'm going to click New Style, double click here, and call this Caption Body Text. Okay, so this is the body text for captions. Go over to character formats, check to see if it picked that up. It did, 8-point. Okay, the reason why it's reading this is because it's highlighted. If I didn't highlight this text and I came over here, it might say Minion, Minion Pro again. But because I highlighted it, it picked up the style, so I click OK. And so now I have caption body text, caption subhead, main body text, main subhead. Label these where you can understand what it is, because you're going to be going back to these throughout the way you build this. Okay, so now that I have this, I'm going to bring in my photo of people, and this is my photo here. So I'm going to just click and drag this in. And I'm going to kind of click and drag it to 1 box wide. Oops, kind of gets sticky here. I need to zoom in here to get this. So let me drag this up until it's 1 box wide. Oops. There we go. Okay. Oops, it's not. Oh, I'm on my text tool, that's why. I have to be on my selection tool. Okay, here we go. All right, and just lock it right on that grid. And then I'll bring this up, back out, hit my W key, and so that's what I have. Now, the reason why it's Greeking out is because once you get so far away, you know, I'm in fit and window, and this is a big 22-inch long page. It Greeks the type out because it can't show it that small. So I have to zoom in a bit there. So now you can see that. Okay? All right, so here's where it gets fun. Now that we have these 2 styles set up, now when I want to build another caption, watch how easy it is to get this type to start working. Okay, so I'll go back to my, if you're hearing this pounding sound, they're working on the roof next door, and it's really irritating. This morning it was driving me nuts, but they're fixing the roof to the next door neighbor's house, and we live in a condo complex. And okay, so I'll go over here, and I'm going to go now next to, let's say, places, and let's say I want to grab some type from, you know, a place, another place. Let me just find something here. I'll grab this, places. Highlight that. Command C, copy it. Go over to InDesign. Grab a text box. Okay. Paste it in. Again, it comes in Minion because that's the default. Now what? Now watch what happens. I'm going to drag this over here and position it. Zoom in. Now instead of having to, at this point, highlight this and change it to Lemon Milk, highlight this and change it to Myriad Pro, because I have these styles going on here, I can just do this. I can highlight places and go to Caption Subhead, and it automatically changes it to that. I can highlight this really quick and change it to Caption Body Text, and that's the same as that. Okay, so in 2 quick clicks, I brought in text and I changed it to this style. And now I can bring in my photograph and place that in there. Maybe crop this up a little bit. Okay, turn off my guides, and I have that. Now I think you know where I'm going with the rest of this. I'll go again one more time. This time I'll go to another section here. Instead of history and culture, maybe I go to education. Oh, that was supposed to be education. Okay. And maybe it's bring your classroom to Manzanar. So I want this copy here. And I'll Command C, copy that. I'll come over to my brochure. I'll draw a text box. Okay. And I'll paste that in. There it is. And I'll position this text box. Actually, no, I'll just highlight what I want to be the heading. That'll be caption subhead. So there that is. highlight this, caption body copy, and then I'll simply move this to the next, to this column and kind of shorten this and bring this up. I always like to make the text boxes a little bit deeper than what the text is. And that's set. Okay, and now all I have to do is bring in my photo and click and drag. Same photo. And then shorten that a little bit. Okay, so the point of this is to show you how to set up a style sheet that will quickly change your text. Okay, and last but not least, what I'll do is, let's say I want another section like this. Okay, so I'm going to bring in this photo, and let's say I want this photo to be stretched all the way, have a big photo, something like that. I'm going to crop this in a little bit because just going to grab this and crop it. I'm not holding any modifier key down, so I'm just cropping this. I'm going to line it up with this photo here. Line up so the alignment is all the way at the top. And see, you don't want a photo to not end on a grid line. The reason why we have these grids is so that they would, so this photo either wants to be smaller and end on this grid line here. So if I did something like that, it either wants to be there or it wants to be there. See that? We either want to end on a grid line, and so the closest grid lines are going to be this one or this one. And that's what makes for good, good design, because now we have these automatic alignments happening. Okay, you see how the eye kind of moves across here and lines up with the top of all of these photos. Now let's say I want a chunk of copy down here, but I want it in this style. Okay, so now I can go in and again, you can kind of figure out what's going to happen here. In fact, I'll just copy this. Let's say Command C. I'll bring this in here. I'll drag a text box and I'll paste it in. Again, it comes in Minion Pro, that default. But now what I'm going to do is highlight this. Oops. Highlight this, and that's going to be the main subhead. Okay, so that's now this size here because I set that style up. And then I'll highlight this, and this is going to be the main body text. Tidy that text box up a little bit. Back out, hit my W key, and so I have that. Okay, so the point of this style sheet is simply, you got to do some work in the beginning to initially set your styles. But once you set your style, you can use them throughout the build of your brochure, and that way you don't have to keep highlighting and going back and changing each bit of copy. Now, this can get quite large in terms of styles. In fact, in a catalog, a big catalog of lots of products, you might have a style sheet that is just tremendous. It could be section styles. It could be individual italics for captions. It could be big heads for, certain major sections in that catalog. Pricing. Sometimes prices are in red. Sometimes prices are in green, and you can set up these styles where you don't have to change color. Now here is where it gets really cool. Let's say the client now says, you know, I like your layout and everything, but can we change these main headings into, or can we tone down the copy to like a gray for these main sections here? Well, what I would have to do if that's the case is highlight all of this and go over to my swatches palette and then take the tint and back the tint down to, like, say 60%, and now this is gray. This is black and this is gray. Let's say they wanted the heads not in black, but they wanted these headlines in, you know, say red. Okay, I'm just saying, you know, I'm just giving you an example, okay? So if this is the style that they wanted, I would have to go into every page and highlight and change it to red and highlight and change it to black, or change it, you know, to 60% black. Okay, I'm going to undo both of those. And here's what I'm going to do. Now that we have this style, we've applied a style here, I'm going to open up that style, and we know that this style up here is the main subhead style, right? So I'm going to double click on that, and if I go down now to color, okay, character color, I can change that style from black to red. Watch what happens when I change this to red. All of those styles change to red. Because this was that style, it changed to red. And if this were 400 pages, every heading would change to red instantly when I click this. And that makes it very quick to make changes. So now, let's say, and I'll click OK. So that now is the style. If I go to main body text, open that up, and go to character color, that's black right now. If I bring the tint down to 60%, watch what happens to all of the styles that were that. Okay, 60%, and it changes all of these to gray. So I can do that to anything. I can go to my caption body copy, and I can change that color, let's say, you know, to blue, and all of the caption body copy changes to blue, or all of the caption subheads will change color. So, you know, that has happened many times where a client will say, you know, I like the prices there, but they need to be bigger and they need to be bolder. So if you did it with style sheets, all you have to do is make one change, make it a bigger point size, and it changes throughout the entire document. So doing style sheets will make this much faster to make changes and to, you know, let's say they don't like the typeface and they want to change the typeface of all these headings. We can easily do that. We can go to caption subheads, and instead of lemon milk, I can quickly change it to whatever, you know, letter Gothic standard. And suddenly they all change here. Whatever I change here becomes the new style. So that's a really cool feature of InDesign, is these style sheets. Now you also notice that there's character styles. There's paragraph styles and there's character styles. And rather than get into the difference between these two, I'm going to leave it at that for now. And I want you to play with paragraph styles, because paragraph styles are they incorporate everything that character styles does. So whatever you can do in character styles, you can do in paragraph styles. Paragraph styles is also will format paragraphs to a style. So let's say, and I'm going to just show this to you real quick. Okay, let's say here, in this these large photos, large heads, you know, and large body copy. Let's say you wanted the body copy to indent. Okay, the first line to indent. All right. So if I go to caption body text, which is what this is, this gray stuff, and I double click on this. Okay, let me just oops, oh, the text tool. I can go now to create indents. Okay, now you can't do this with character styles, but I can go to indents and spacing here. And I can create the first line indent to be, now watch what happens when I click this arrow. Watch the indent of this first line here. And it'll also happen down here because these are the same style. So if I go up, first line indent 1. Okay, oh, this is the caption stuff. So you see the caption, it's not the main body copy. I had the wrong one. But I can go first line indent up again, and you notice how they all indent.
Yeah.
And that is nice because you don't have to go in and indent each individual paragraph. And if you want to take out the indents, you can just take them out and go back to no indents. You can adjust the space before and after paragraphs. You can adjust, all of these different parameters instantly to all of your copy that has this style applied to it. Okay? You can change alignments. So if you want all of your captions to be right aligned instead of left aligned, okay, you could just simply go to your alignments and make that change. So that is what I thought I would discuss today that might help you in building your brochure. Because you have lots of copy, you might want to pull up some paragraph styles, set some paragraph styles, play around with this. Okay, set a style and then highlight and click on it, highlight and click on it, and you'll see right away the value of using this. And it's a great typographic tool to use whenever you have lots of text and you have the same styles working on several pages. Okay, because one of the things that's really time consuming is having to go in and highlighting all your blocks of copy and changing it one by one. So I think I've said that enough. Don't mean to keep hammering that point down, but it is a great feature. It's actually a feature that personally I had known about, I was taught, and I was just so lazy that I never used it, and I would just be this kind of circle jerk, where I would just keep doing it the old-fashioned way, and just making more work for myself. Until finally, I really dug in and I said, you know what? I have to really start using this paragraph style stuff and once I did, I use it now just about in every project in InDesign. But if you're doing a single ad where you only have a little bit of copy and, just set it, change the point size, that's it, it's done. You don't need to do paragraph styles or character styles. But if you have an entire brochure, or things like what you're doing, National Parks brochure, then yes, you would want to do a character style. Now, the very big heading at the top, it only happens once, right? The one that says the name of your national park. So you don't really need to make a character style or paragraph style of that because it's only going to be used once. I'm talking about all of these type things where you're going to be using this throughout your brochure. So check it out, try it out. Another thing the last thing I wanted to show you is that that I noticed when I was doing this demo here is this situation here. Okay, when I shorten this text box, you notice this is the last line, but I'm still getting this little plus sign here. And you might ask yourself, well, why is that, right? That's the last line. Why is this overset text icon showing up? Notice here, when I get real close, it's still blank, right? It's nice and clean. Well, the reason why you're seeing that is because if you notice, there's an extra return down here. This is where the cursor is. See when I click down there? See how the cursor attached down here? That means there was one more return space in that text box. And by rolling up this text box to the end of this line, it's saying, there's something below that. But when you pull this shade down, there's nothing there. Well, what's there is a blank return. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because I want all of you to realize that when you see that plus sign and there's nothing there, you still have to take that return out. And the reason is when you get to printing this, it's going to warn you that you have pages that have text boxes with overset text. And anytime InDesign warns you of that, you've got to go back to that page and see which text box it is, because it could be where you have actual text. See that? Where I have another line here that, oops, right? Boy, you don't want to print and hide that last line, because that would be disaster. That happened to me once where we printed an entire catalog and the client called and said, hey, where's the rest of that description? And it was like, uh-oh. Okay, so watch your overset text icons, okay, to your text boxes. I always like to roll up the shades to the bottom of the text box, but if you see that, then to get rid of that, all you have to do is get your text tool, click here, and then hit the delete key and bring that up. Okay. Now what happened there is something weird because, I think I had a paragraph thing going on there. But anyway, get rid of that so that you don't have that overset text icon there. I'm going to have to change that in the style. Okay, so that's that. Let's see, this one here is clean. So if I roll this up nice and tight, I have nothing here. That means that's the last line of that text box. And that's important too. Okay, so I hope that helps you in building your brochure. I wanted to give you a little lesson on some advanced features of InDesign as far as, and this would be considered kind of an advanced feature of that. Another thing that we'll talk about maybe in the next class is I want to talk about some of these paragraph features here. Now we did deal with drop caps and those things in the dessert, but I want to talk about before and after spacing in paragraphs. How to create custom before and after spacing. Like a lot of times people will think that, gee, if I want space between two paragraphs, I have to literally put a return in there. Like if I want space, I have to go to there and hit the return key and give it one full line space. But sometimes this space right here is too much. One full line is too much, and you don't want one full line. You want a little bit less than one full line. So how do you do that? And that's what these features up here do. It really allows you to customize the space between paragraphs. So we'll talk a little bit about that in the next class. I think I've talked enough about this. Okay, so check it out, play around with that, and does anybody have any questions as far as their brochure or what any things that you're coming across that you have questions on?
I have one.
Yes.
Well, when I was building the brochure, I did 22 by 16.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking I did it wrong, so I have to go back and do it all over again. Plus, I thought I had to do exactly the brochure from the national parks. So I just have to go do it all over again. How can I do a 22 by 16 when you first open it up? Because I have to do it all over again.
Well, there's a couple of ways. I'll answer your question first, and then I'll give you an alternative. All you need to do to open up a new document is to just go to File and New Document. and you'll get your new document dialog box. And then right here is where you're going to set up your size, and make sure that it's in inches, because you can also set it up in all these different other measurements. Sometimes people will mistakenly set it up in picas, and then that's disaster because that's tiny. 22 by 16 picas is very small. So make sure that it's inches. You can name your document here, and then go ahead and continue. It would be a 2-page document.
I
You
think
would.
what I did was in the orientation, I
Mm-hmm.
did the first and not the second. That's
You
what
did
I,
portrait instead of
yeah.
landscape. Yeah. Okay. Well, this might be a better way to do it now. So then you would create, okay, and that would do it. But let's say, well, okay, let's just do that. Let's just mistakenly do that. We'll open up a new document and we'll give it a portrait orientation instead of a landscape orientation, which is there, okay. And I'll create this new document here, and it should look like that, right?
Yes.
That's okay. So maybe this is what your document looks like. Okay. So rather than creating a new document, okay, here's what you can do. You can just reorganize and reshape this document, the same document. You don't have to open up a new one and rename it and save it and all of that. So just go up here to File, and you have your document setup right here. So this is what your current document looks like. And all you have to do is change the orientation of this to landscape.
Okay.
Okay, so you were here, and all you do is that.
Okay.
And voila, everything changes. Now, all of your elements on the page might be all kind of wonky because this changed, right? And the spacing changed. But now you can just click and drag and reshape, refit everything. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Okay.
So anytime you want to modify your existing document, you can go up to File, Document, and do it there. There's so many things you can do here. If you just want to change the amount of margins and columns, let's say your margins here, you want heavier margins, okay? Let's say you want more. You can go up here to Layout and see where it says Margins and Columns. Layout, Margins, and Columns. And that will allow you to change your margins. Right now it's 1/2 inch, 0.5. But if I wanted to change the margins to, let's say, something deeper, okay, you see how they're getting thicker, okay, to, let's say, 3/4 of an inch, I could do that all right here. If I wanted to change the number of columns from 12 to 6, I can do that here. And then click OK. And now I've modified my existing document in terms of margins and columns. Okay, so either one of those you can do. Anything else?
No.
Okay. Steve, you're okay? Don't see Ruben
good.
here today. So I will touch bases with you guys again next week. Have a great weekend. And you look tired, Cindy. Are you
Yeah.
tired? Yeah.
Yeah. Dog.
D-
Yeah.
are you working?
Yeah, I have been working.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, get some rest. And my mom always used to say, I used to stay up late every night, and I'd be just terrible in the morning. She'd always used to get on my case to go to bed earlier, but not me. No way. My time was at night, man. That was my favorite time when I was younger. But, okay, you guys. I'll see you again next week.
Yep.
Okay.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.